In software project management, today we deal with one of the topics called workflows of the process. In general, what is meant by workflow? So the workflow involves the sequence of activities to achieve a goal, starting from the initial activity to the final stage. In software project management, there are two types of workflows to be followed for any software project or product. One is software process workflow, the other one is iteration workflow. So what is workflow? The term workflow is used to mean a thread or sequential activities involved in every phase and iteration of a process. In every software product, there are mainly four types of phases: inception, elaboration, construction, and deployment phase. So in each phase, again, there are artifacts. Artifacts nothing but the sequential activities. So next, the main or referential things to be followed for any workflow in software project management are seven. One is management workflow, where the upper manager gives some suggestions to lower manager or assigns a task to the lower manager. And the environment workflow, which deals with the environment to be followed and hardware or database to be used for any software project or product. And the requirements workflow involve gathering the requirements and modifying the requirements. And design workflow involves the baseline of the architecture or any reference model of an architecture. And implementation workflow involves coding the components, gathering and modifying the components. The assessment workflow involves the evaluation of meeting the requirements given by any client or customer to make a product. And deployment workflow includes the final feedback given by the user and the performance of the product. Now we'll deal with the software process workflow. For software process workflow, there are mainly four frames. One is architecture first approach, the other one is iteration lifecycle process, the other one is round trip engineering, and the final one is demonstration based approach. So we'll deal with each of the workflow for software workflow process. So when we deal with the management workflow, the main activities involved in this management workflow includes business case, software development plan for completing a product, and status assessment of the project, and vision of the project, and work breakdown structure. This work breakdown structure includes breaking down the work into each individual based on their skills. And coming to the each phase emphasis on this management workflow, in inception phase, we mainly prepare the business case and vision. And elaboration phase, we plan a development for the product. And in construction phase, we monitor and control the development. In transition phase, we monitor and control the deployment. This is the final phase. And coming to the environment workflow, the artifacts includes environment, whether we are using the Windows operating system or Linux operating system, as well as the software, hardware, database to be used for storing the data. All this comes under these artifacts of environment workflow. And coming to the emphasis of phases, in inception phase, it defines the development environment and infrastructure. And in elaboration phase, we install the development environment, database, and infrastructure. In construction phase, we maintain developed environment and database. And coming to the transition phase includes maintenance of the environment and software database. And in requirement workflow, the artifacts includes requirement set and release specifications. And lifecycle phase emphasis includes defining operational concept in inception phase, defining architecture objectives in elaboration phase, and iteration objectives in construction phase, and release objectives in transition phase. And the fourth one is design workflow. So design workflow includes artifacts like design set and architecture description. And lifecycle phase emphasis includes the same as the above one, which includes the formulating the architecture concept in inception, achieve architecture baseline in elaboration, and designing the components in construction, and refining architecture and components in transition phase. And the sixth one is implementation workflow. So implementation workflow artifacts includes mainly implementation set and deployment set. So this implementation set includes the things like the components to be used, coding language to be used for implementing the software product. So in inception phase, we deal with the supporting the architecture prototype. Means not all the tools will support the architecture we are using for making a product. So we have to take such prototype which is suitable for our environment. Suppose we are using Windows operating system, we need to use only those tools that support Windows operating system. So in elaboration phase, we produce the architecture baseline, and in construction phase, we produce complete componentry, and in transition phase, we maintain the components that were gathered in this phase. And the assessment workflow, this includes the evaluation things like release specifications, user manuals, release descriptions, and deployment set. And the lifecycle phase emphasis mainly includes in inception phase, we have assessing plans, vision, and prototypes. I mean, what are the plans we have in the initial stage of a product? We evaluate those things, whether we have reached those plans or not. And in elaboration phase, we assess the architecture. And in construction phase, we assess the interim releases. I mean, the versions. Suppose we are using latest version 10.0, we'll assess are there any improvement or changes comparing to 9, 8, and 7 and other previous version. And in transition phase, we assess the latest product releases. And coming to deployment, artifacts include deployment set. And in inception phase, we analyze the user community. I mean, who are the users of the particular software product? What feedback can we get from them? So based on that, we can change those things in other iterations. And in elaboration phase, we define user manual. And in construction phase, we prepare transition materials. And in transition phase, we transition product to the user. We'll give the end product to the user. And in iteration workflow, this is second workflow of software project management. So an iteration consists of a loosely sequential set of activities. We call this loosely sequential because iteration itself involves changing. So if they are tightly coupled, we cannot change the module. So iteration consists of mainly loosely sequential set of activities in various proportions, depending on where the iteration is located in development cycle. And each iteration is defined in terms of set of allocated using scenarios. If you see this diagram, these 7 are common, as we said in the previous. These 7 are common for any workflow process. So at the end, if you see the results for the next iteration, so these results are again given back at the here, results from the previous iteration and allocated using scenarios. So in an inception and elaboration phase, the main workflows involved are management workflow, requirement workflow, and design workflow. And coming to construction phase, mainly includes design workflow, implementation workflow, and assessment workflow. And coming to transition phase, the main workflows are assessment and deployment. All this is about workflows of software workflow process, guys. Thank you so much.